Hey, what's up you guys? My name is Marina. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about my 2021 reading goals. Just as a little bit of summary, in 2020 I read 100 books and about 30,000 pages. Here is a look at my books comparing nonfiction to fiction, as well as my page numbers. So my goal for the most part for 2021 is just to read better than I did in 2020, if that makes sense. So I would like to read about 50 books, but I'm hoping to read more than 30,000 pages. So I really want to focus on reading books that I want to read, not necessarily reading a whole bunch of books because I want to get to 100 books. I am fine reading a whole bunch of really large books if I'm really enjoying them. So I just want to focus on the page numbers going forward, not necessarily the amount of books. So I want to read, I'm hoping for at least 35 to 40,000 pages. I think my best year of reading, I read like 35,000 pages, and I think I ended up reading 117 books that year. And I really enjoyed that. I really want to kind of continue the momentum of what I've been doing over the last few years. So along with that, I also would just like to read better books and books I'm really interested in. So I feel like in 2020, it was kind of a hard year for everyone in the first place, and I was really having a hard time getting motivated to read books. And for some reason, I kept reading books that I wasn't kind of that interested in, or I would be interested in it and put it down. I would never really finish it. And I just want to focus on books that I'm really excited about, books that have been on my TBR for years, that I always want to read and I always think about and I never end up actually reading. There's so many of them that I always think oh, I really want to read that, and then I read something else instead. I want to read these books that I think I'm going to love because I want to enjoy reading. I want to love reading, as well as I think there are some books that are going to be better suited for me if I physically read them. I want to take the time to physically read those books. I want to annotate a whole bunch of books. I don't want to just read everything on audiobook because it's easy to listen to audiobooks. In 2020, I really got interested in podcasts as well as listening to different music, and I want to continue doing that in 2021. So I won't be listening to as many audiobooks. I want to focus on physically reading some books that I think are better meant to be read physically. For example, Books and Lala read The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Nhi Vo, and she absolutely adored this book. So I ended up reading it, but I listened to it in an audiobook, and I felt like I just didn't get the full experience out of it. In one of her reading vlogs, she reread that book, and I think she listened to it on audiobook, and she said it was a very different experience, and she enjoyed physically reading the book a lot better, and it meant more to her that way. So now I want to go back and physically read that book to see if I have the same experience. And I really think that there's some books that I need to physically read to see the words and to see how it's written and stuff. I think I'll enjoy books better that way. This is long and rambly, but what I'm basically saying is I want to set myself up for success to enjoy as many books as I possibly can. I feel like all these kind of goals are very similar, but I would also like to read more diversely. So in 2020, I read so many LGBT books, and I started reading a lot more books from different cultures and authors that were Black or people of color, and I want to continue on doing that and read stories from more marginalized groups and books that feature more diversity and different stories from people that are very different from my own. I want to continue doing that into 2021 because I think it's really important. I feel like one of my goals for the last few years has always been to really continue on with series because I love reading series, but I don't know, I just get so overwhelmed with the amount of series that are out there. So I always start them, I never finish them, or I decide that I only want to read them when the whole series is out, and then I never end up reading them. So this year in 2021, I want to just make a goal to finally push to either finish series that I'm in the middle of, DNF them, start them over again, and just kind of figure out what I want to do with every single series that I have started. So my last reading goal for 2021 is just to read more nonfiction. I consider myself to be somebody that loves nonfiction, and I always thought that I read a lot of it, but looking back on my graph for the amount of nonfiction versus fiction that I've read, I actually looked over the last few years, and I really only read maybe 10 to 15 nonfiction a year out of the usually 100 plus books that I read. So that's really not a very large percent considering how much I do love nonfiction and enjoy these stories. So in 2021, I really want to focus on that. There's 4 of my 6 shelves of nonfiction are unread, which is crazy considering how much I like nonfiction. So I really want to make a push to read these, or at least figure out if they're books that I'm actually interested in. So another goal that I just thought of is I really want to read more of my kids books. So I have been collecting all the Goosebumps books. That was Rosie yawning because she's very tired and she doesn't like that I'm talking. But I have a whole bunch of Goosebumps books. I've been collecting the series over the last few years, as well as all the spin-off series like the Goosebumps Series 2000 or the Horrorland books or the whatever the newest series that came out. I want to read some of those because I have all of them. I think it's time that I finally start getting through some of them and then maybe watching the episode of the TV series that corresponds to it to see kind of how they compare. This was a very long, rambly video. Thank you for bearing with me. This whole video is pretty much just to say I want to love what I'm reading in 2021, and I just want that to be what I focus on, I guess, if that makes sense. So I will see you guys with my next video. Bye.